Okay, welcome back to the Jiu Jitsu Mindset. It's Pete Deeley, and I just can't tell you how grateful I am because every week I'm surprised at how open the universe is to bring me in people that I just I would say, oh, I'd like to talk to that person, and j by asking, time and time again, they've been generous enough to do that with me. And this week is no exception. Before I tell you who's with me, I just want to remind you that for those of you who have some tournaments coming up, submission coffee is still available at the jujitsumindset.com for your subscription. And you can safely accept the advantage it gives you because it's not classified as a performance enhancing drug, as I've said. Uh, so I don't even know with my guests like what the right order of title should be, but I'm going to start with the Jiu-Jitsu title. So I have Professor Jason Shields or Professor Dr. Jason Shields with me today. And sir, thank you for talking to me. This is couldn't have happened 20 years ago with the technology we have. You know, how great that we could be where we are and have a chance to talk to each other. So thank you for
Oh,
spending
that's
time with me.
totally mind-blowing and my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
In there are times, I'm in preparation for my conversations and I'm reading about somebody and or I'm listening to some things that they've said and I'm like, this person must be about 350 years old because they've got so many things they've done and accomplished and in all these different areas. And you were one of those people where it really caused me to question my life choices. Like, what have I been doing with my time? So. Um, you're a person that you must have extraordinary abilities to focus and to learn quickly, and then the dedication to bring something you're interested into into fruition in your life. And as a doctor, a coach, a teacher, a world champion jiu-jitsu athlete, these are all things that if anybody did one of those, you'd be like, well, that person's a very successful human being. And you have success, extraordinary success across all of those. So when I think about jiu-jitsu's relationship to your life, I'm curious as a man who found, great, I'm sure, pleasure and wisdom in these other things that you put your attention towards. Were there things that Jiu-Jitsu gave you that you either didn't or couldn't find elsewhere?
Absolutely. I would say that a lot of my focus as a younger man was on performance and on understanding both the structure of things and how things relate to each other, so that
Mm,
when you improve in one area, you actually get the bump in all areas,
nice.
right? And that common denominator was always my internal state, my internal ability to hyper focus or
Mm,
to balance myself and show up as much as possible at 100% in each one of these endeavors, right?
right.
Jiu-jitsu gave me an opportunity to lose a lot, to get smashed a lot,
Right.
to feel out of control, but then find control again.
Mm,
And very interestingly, get in contact with a group of people
mm,
who felt kind of like home.
nice.
I would say that among a lot of achievers and people who want to succeed in their life, there are a lot of kind of lone wolves and
Mm,
people who don't really connect. They want to stand out. I never wanted to stand out. I just
mhm.
wanted to be good enough to share,
Right,
you
right.
know? And jujitsu really gave me that community so I could be good enough to share. I could share with my friends, I could learn from them. And I've received so much love and appreciation and community through jujitsu that I think that I couldn't have gotten anywhere else.
When
Because
yeah, I'm sorry, forgive me. Go ahead.
no, no worries. It's just because you're trying to, in a way, quote unquote, kill each other on the mat.
Mhm,
But then you're sitting there afterwards and you're such good friends and you just appreciate everything your friend did. And
mhm.
it's like this, it's like opposites
Yeah.
existing, they're coexisting in one place all at once. And it's full intensity and full care and full appreciation all at once.
Yeah, the tap for me feels like a physical act of genius, like someone coming up with how do you create maximal threat and maximal safety if done correctly. In what you just said, just to have one quick detour, because it's very personally interesting to me,
Mhm.
your ability to be in the moment and focus on that thing with that hyper, like laser-like focus, was that a gift or that you had from just who you are, or is that cultivated? Because in reading about you, you have deep knowledge, understanding of a lot of the wisdom traditions, and a lot of those traditions speak to what you just described. And I have found that to be an excruciating discipline. Like, can I quiet my mind? Like, that is, I'd be terrible in the CIA because my mom said if someone wants to break you, they just sit you down and say maybe to any of your questions. And my inability to resolve something would just, crush my spirit. So were you naturally able to, when this is in front of me, I'm present to that thing, and then I can move to the next thing and be present there as well? Or did you work on that with whatever ways you might have worked on
Yeah, it was a lot of work, a
it?
long
Okay.
period of work. My father came home from Vietnam, severely traumatized,
Mm,
and unfortunately, he was successful in traumatizing the family as well.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So as he came home, he was suffering a lot with anxiety and paranoia, and of course, hallucinations.
Oh my
And
goodness.
he used drugs and alcohol to kind of keep that in check,
Sure.
so that he could have some kind of normal life with us. So there was an incident where my mom was at work and he told me that some bad men were going to come over and that I needed to hide.
Mm,
So I I said, "Well, how long do I hide?" And he said, "You hide until you hear my voice, and I ask you to come out." So I hid in the closet in his bedroom behind my mother's dresses, among her shoes. I could still smell the leather of
yeah.
her shoes and like the perfume in her dresses.
Yeah.
And I was hiding there and I heard the men come in and I heard the men leave. But unfortunately, they had overdosed him with drugs and he was
Wow.
passed out for, I think he was out for over 18 hours.
Oh my goodness.
So when my mother came home from work and couldn't find me in the house, it was a huge trauma.
Yeah.
And she couldn't find me, and I was following what my dad said.
Sure.
It wasn't his voice, so I was staying in there because I didn't want the dangerous men to get me. So it was
Right.
like my first real taste of terror.
Oh my gosh. How old are you at this moment?
I'm at that point, I'm like f four
Oh,
going on five.
oh my goodness.
So I was in the closet, and my mom found me because she could smell the pee, basically.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So when she finally got me out of there, she told my dad, "Okay, listen, you have such big issues that either you go to Alcoholics Anonymous,
Hmm.
or we're out of here." So he
Right.
went to the meeting and then he came home and he said, "If anything can happen in my life that will help me, that's going to help me."
Wow.
And he never went back
Oh my goodness. Okay.
because he realized that he couldn't function safely in the house without being drugged down, because he would wake up in the middle of the night thinking that he was being attacked
Yeah.
and he didn't know how that was going to look. So my mom basically left. And of course, that was at that time the love of her life.
Yeah.
So she was traumatized. And at that point, we started the journey of learning how to self regulate and meditate and self heal. So
Okay.
she got involved with transcendental meditation.
Wow.
She got involved with the Unity Church. She got
Hmm.
involved with different groups of people that created some kind of a healthy structure so that she could heal. And at the same time, I was also working through that. So,
Wow.
in a way, it gave me an opportunity at a very young age to start understanding that first, people do the best they can, but they don't always treat you the way you may feel
Yeah.
they should. But also that inner process is really a powerful thing, because I would say that based on that, all of the inner work that I did was powered and initiated by that, because I'm thinking to myself, I never want to see another child stuck in a closet.
Right.
I never want to see a father who's traumatically parked not be able to be with his family because he has issues and can't get help. And I never want to see a mother
Yeah.
come home to a situation like that. So my life basically transformed into trying to help other people with their
Right.
health, their mental, emotional health, their physical health. And that's where it started.
Must have really separated you from your natural peer group. Like it must have been a very lonely then stretch where you had, it sounds like you either were gifted with or out of necessity or by accident, a self-awareness at a very young at an age that almost feels punitive because if you're a self-aware 5-year-old, now you're on a very different journey than a
Mm.
5-year-old who's just finding out how the world reacts. Like if I do something, what happens to the world? But now you're like, well, I've seen the consequences
Yeah.
of things, and I know there are things that can happen that, I mean, terror is a good word for that. That can, it's one thing to be afraid, it's another thing to be terrified. A friend of mine as an adult, he lived through an earthquake in the
Mm.
90s in California called the Northridge earthquake, which is a very big earthquake. And I was like, well, what was that experience like? He's like, as an adult, you may get rattled or scared, but you're very rarely terrified in that way that
Mm.
you are. He says, let me tell you right now, like being, because he was right in like near all the terrible parts of it. He's like, I
Wow.
was terrified. So it always stuck in my mind, like the gradations of fear that we can experience, but nothing quite like being an innocent faced with something terrifying and then having enough self-aware to realize, oh my gosh, I know what just happened to me. So it
Mm.
seemed like it puts you on a road in which you could be the helper, because I mean, as what uh, was it in Man's Search for Meaning? If you take your suffering and make it useful in the world, then it's redeemed. But it must
Yes.
have, I mean, how did it affect you? I think maybe I'm asking that
Well,
question.
I would say that self-aware plus minus as a child because, I was sitting with a lot of emotions and
Yeah.
dysregulation, learning disabilities to begin with.
Hmm.
Have lots of interesting stories around how that played out, lots of fights in schools. We moved a lot.
Yeah.
I was always getting picked on because, of course, I was not the same as everybody else, and
Right.
also
Right.
probably not as emotionally regulated in the beginning as I should
Sure.
or
Yeah.
would have been as an average kid.
Right.
And my mom did a wonderful job of following me up and, caring for me. And I went through different phases, the angry phase. And
Hmm.
then, like, when I went to third grade, I would come home and I cried. I think I cried every single day at the end of every school day
Yeah.
at home with my mom for a whole year,
Wow.
you know. So there was a lot of um, not understanding why
Hmm.
and
Sure.
what,
Yeah.
right? But again, the meditation process allowed me to slowly but surely realize, and this is one of the biggest things that I can give as a secret from all of the meditation that I've done, and that is that you never really control your mind, you
Hmm.
never really control your emotions, but there's a place where there are no thoughts and there are no emotions, and you find that spot so that you're witnessing the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you go, wow, that's crazy. Like, wow, man, I'm super aggro right now. What am I doing? And you can more easily regulate it because you have a little bit of a witnessing experience
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
So it's more, in a way, developing that space and it becoming more and more magnetic as you meditate. And that's what happened, and suddenly I was able to relate to my friends at school and I was able to function better at school and my grades finally started to move up,
Yeah.
and it was a lot of interesting experiences that I had with other children that had also been traumatized at their homes and figuring out that, stress and post-traumatic growth really bonds people,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's really a beautiful kind of connection. It's an understanding that's not even a verbal thing. It's just a connection, right?
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be coming from a negative thing only, but even people are traumatized based on positive things as well.
Sure.
You can. winning the lottery is a trauma.
Yeah, yes, 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 yes.
You know,
Yeah,
and it can change your life, not
yeah.
always for the better
All
either.
right. Although
You know,
I'm willing to
so
test the possibility. So please afflict me with that trauma. I'll report
yeah,
back.
exactly. Yeah, okay. All right. Then, yeah, bam.
Okay, very good.
Right. Yeah, I've always asked for that one too. I'm like, why not? You know, am I not ready? Am I not worthy?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think, I mean, what you're saying applies, I think, in the specific of the person and the general of the culture, right? I mean, like
Mm,
watching a president, watching JFK have, being killed on television is a cultural trauma that then has its specific inflection, right? Or, the 19, I mean, forgive all the USA references, but the U.S. beating the Soviet Union in the hockey game in 1980
oh yeah.
is the positive side, right? Like, oh, it's a sense
Yeah.
of here's the ragtag kids being the professionals, pick your metaphors of choice there. But I
Mm,
think then, 'cause then we share this as a group, like here, we got hurt here, we're triumphed here. And then at the smaller level, I think I understand what you're saying that within families certainly is the most obvious unit that the trauma your mom shared was something you two shared together, even though I'm sure it had different ways of expressing itself and experiencing it on your part.
absolutely. And I realized with that meditation, that process, that it's not what happened to you, it's what you did with it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it's that internal work, that internal
right.
processing that really made the difference. And it's kind of like, you know, do you take the rear naked choke at jujitsu as an assault
Right.
or as a slick technique that your friend pulled off and you're so proud?
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, bro, that was so good. I can't believe you got that. You know,
Hmm.
it's like, wow. You know, or so it's really that perspective of how are you taking and receiving the world, you know?
Yeah. For me, that's the
And
definition of maturity. Like
mm,
if you can have a little distance from the event itself and then have a evaluation of it rather than just a reaction to it, it's
yeah,
that evaluative quality to me separates the mature and the immature because regardless of what happens to you, your life's going to go on. So you're going to have to figure out, do you incorporate it or not? Well, I got to be careful because I could ask you, 5 hours of questions along these lines. And so when we talk about applying that focus, I almost want to make sure that my research was accurate. It seemed as though
mhm.
jujitsu comes to you via a YouTube video, and I don't know that that's true, but that it wasn't
Yes.
that you were in the martial arts community and someone said, try, let's roll together, but it was something that you saw that intrigued you that began. Is that true?
Absolutely. So, you know, I was one of the people who saw the first UFC, of course, and I thought that was amazing, you know, but Hoist had the gi on, right?
Right?
So, and I didn't think about that. I was, you know, studying and getting my practice rolling and time was passing. And I was like, man, I need a challenge. I need something more. My practice was wonderful and I loved all my patients and I
Hmm.
could work as much as I wanted.
Hmm.
At one point, I was challenging myself with starting with my first patient at 5:15 in the morning and then finishing my last patient at 10 at night and doing paperwork in the weekends and just seeing how far I could push myself.
Hmm.
And I was thinking, okay, I need something more.
Hmm.
And I was on YouTube and I saw something strange because I wrestled in high school in Iowa.
Okay. Oh,
So, you
wow.
know, I had some
The
some
the holy land of
real
wrestling out in Iowa, right? Come on now.
yeah, some
Yeah.
real experience with wrestling, you know. And I was watching this fight between Joao Assis and Janji Ribeiro no gi. And I was like, it looks like wrestling, but they have rash guards on and like they're fighting and they're grabbing each other, and it doesn't look like it's just takedowns. And I think that Joao finally popped Janji's knee or something like that. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, because I didn't recognize it as jujitsu, right?
Right, sure.
And I'm like, this is just the craziest thing ever. And I was like, man, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And then like a year later, it pops up again in my feed. And I'm like, okay, I don't care what I'm doing this. Whatever
Right.
this looks like the thing I need to do, right?
Very good.
And Janji's been a great hero for me. It turns out that he's exactly the same size as me.
Oh, wow.
Like I got to shake his hand and stand next to him at the Europeans several times and at the Worlds and talk to him, and he's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
And it was just so strange. It's like, wow, this is such an interesting sport, and it looks dangerous,
Hmm.
at that level. Because I saw Zhangji literally relocate his knee. Like
Goodness.
there was like a timeout, and he was like, okay, bop. And I saw his knee just go kaboom. And I'm like, oh, that was completely out of joint. Like, how? How? And he didn't tap either. I'm like, what is this? Right.
Wow.
And I think Joao won on an advantage. I didn't even know what an advantage was,
Right.
you
Sure.
know? So that was the start. And I started calling around trying to figure out who in Norway was able to help me start a club. I had just told the guys, listen, I will provide the mats, the place, the rent. I'll pay for everything. Just come,
Yeah.
and you can have all the money from the club. And there was a guy who had just come from Brazil, and his name is Andre Porto de Carvalho. They call him Feeble, and he just won the Pans last year. He says it's a great guy. And he just said, listen, I may not be the biggest guy, I may not be the strongest guy, but you'll never meet a guy who loves jujitsu more than me.
How
And I'm
awesome.
like, that's who I want to teach me. I said, that's what I want. I want love in my life. I want passion.
Yeah.
Come on. So we started the club together. Me and him, my wife, and I started the club. And as soon as I was moving and had enough and things were rolling, he was like, okay, it's yours. See ya.
Wow.
You know. So he's got a big club, Frontline Bergen, which is like I guess an hour and a half away or so. It's a
Okay.
much larger town.
Well,
So,
this doesn't just get incorporated as a way to blow off steam from your medical practice as a chiropractor. I mean, you become a champion. So, that
yeah.
the and like many things, I think that we read things that someone won this or won that, but don't take time to realize like, hey, that's a hard thing to do. You've been a champion multiple times while you were running a successful practice and all that. So you found ways into the art, not just as a hobbyist. So I'm curious, when you think about, it sounds to me you developed an ability to break down problems into components and solve them uh, as pieces rather than the whole. When you started to learn jujitsu as a wrestler, like anytime I see somebody throw a punch, I know if someone taught them boxing as a kid, or I see a soccer ball being kicked, like I know whether they put a soccer ball in front of you as a child or not. You just do it differently. I feel
Yeah.
like wrestlers too, when anyone grabs me as a white belt and they were a high school wrestler, even if they're, my age, had been 40 years since they wrestled, I'm like, oh, you wrestled, didn't you? Like you know what to do here better than I do, probably. What was the experience of learning, either the same or different from other things that you had threw yourself into like that?
That's a great question because uh, it was interesting. One of the things that my early partner, Feeble, said, he said, okay, now I want to tell you something, Jason. You're going to just listen to me right now. And I said, okay. And he said, okay, we have weaknesses, you and me. And I said, weaknesses? He said, yeah, you're old and I'm small. Because he's a tiny guy. He's like
Okay.
he's like 120 pounds or
Hmm.
something like that, and he's super good. But like he's like, you're old and I'm small. So you have to remember this. And he said, jujitsu is it's amazing, but it's not magic. It's leverage, it's physics, but it's
Right.
not magic. So you have to understand. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. And because people forget that it's a sport,
Right.
people forget they need to warm up and they should do physical preparation if they're going to compete, that
Right.
they
Right.
need to take, time to rest, in
Hmm.
between sessions, and that they can't, redline their body 2 times a day at training.
Right.
They
Yeah.
people forget that if it was like basketball, they would never do that same thing with basketball because they
Right.
understand it's a sport.
Right. Right.
But people forget that jujitsu is a sport, that it's much more than a sport, but they
Yes,
forget that it
understood. Yes.
still
Yes.
follows the rules of the physical experience.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and I work a lot with Olympic athletes here in Vos. It was biathlon, alpine skiing, cross country, biking.
Hmm.
to help them do physical preparation. So the first thing I did was make sure that I got my physical preparation in order, that I did like the big six lifts,
Mm-hmm.
which is, deadlift, squat, bench press, rows, pull-ups, and shoulder press to make sure that I didn't get injured every single training.
Right, right, right.
I did that twice a week. And then I also made sure that I had enough mobility
Mm,
to do the things that were necessary to do the techniques safely, like
mm-hmm.
De La Rivas, for example. If you don't do the De La Riva correctly and your hips aren't open enough, you will break your knee.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad position for your knee unless like you twist their knee or they twist your knee.
Mm-hmm.
So you can choose. But if you're not twisting their knee, your knee's getting twisted. And if you apply force, your knee's going to pop.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
the first thing was to understand that I had to take care of the vessel.
right.
And then after that, I would say the difference between this and other sports is that other sports, you're handling the road, you're handling the snow, you're handling the equipment, but your partner is actually a chaos machine.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're touching your partner could be a black belt, they
Mm-hmm.
could be a new white belt, they could have a day where they're clear in their head or not clear in their head.
Right.
They can know where their feet are, they can fall on you. That was one thing that, my friend Fevel was saying. I had a power lifter
Oh,
that
yeah.
was training with us, and he had 1,200 pound grip strength. So this guy, I got mount on him one time. He grabbed me by the pants, like he grabbed me by the gi pants, and he
Yeah.
literally launched me so far that I was launched up and I landed on my feet.
Oh my gosh.
Like it was so much, right?
Yeah.
So you get such a different experience depending on who you're rolling with. And you have to be able to adapt and to manage that.
Right. Right.
And number one is, of course, managing yourself, which again, we come back to the whole interstate thing.
Right.
But man, jujitsu is crazy. It's crazy
Yes.
because
Yeah.
even in wrestling, you're going against guys your own size.
Right. Right.
But in my experience in jujitsu, dude, I have guys that are they're like 300 pounds.
Sure.
And then you have guys who are like 120.
Yeah.
And it's to adapt to that is just doesn't happen anywhere else.
It's been a real interesting part of my experience, the notion of like the amplitude that the human body can have, like a 120 pound person when you roll with that person. And then, I've rolled with people that are 320 pounds. And I don't think it ever occurred to me that like if there's some people I'll roll with, if I take their back, I can't reach around their body. Like I can't get them in an RNC because my arm isn't long enough. Their
You're
neck is too thick. They're
you're
like
too big.
they're
I
too,
know.
they're too big. But I think that was like a theoretical, well, it was a theoretical thing prior to Jiu-Jitsu because I never was in any grappling or wrestling. And then to see like the amplitude and power, like to somebody who knows what they're doing and 100 pounds heavier to me, like to realize, oh, this is um, non-metaphorically a lethal situation. Should my partner have wanted to kill me in this
Yeah,
role
exactly.
where I've had that experience? Like, well, he would have absolutely killed me. He could have broke whatever he wanted and all the rest
Yeah.
of it. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
so as you come to this not as a teenager, you come to this as, you're already a physician, you're professional, your life is
Yeah.
launched, you carve out enough space then in your own competitive experiences to be, distinguished as a world champion when you look at jujitsu coming to those of us who will unlikely aspire to world champion status, do you have an opinion about like how people who come to jujitsu should think about competition? And I don't mean like ADCC. I mean, hey,
Mhm.
there's your club is in like for us, CompNet might have a local competition that's designed primarily for kids, but then us, the cadres get to have our day, later
Oh,
in the afternoon to have our so competition is available even to the folks that, might not think it's available to them. So do you think it's a
Mhm.
good idea, a bad idea? Are you indifferent? Where do you come down on that?
That's a very good question. I would say that it depends on why you're starting jujitsu. I
Mm.
was literally starting to see how far I could push myself
Hmm.
and to do a self-exploration, honestly.
Hmm.
And jujitsu is special because, okay, you have open weight, but in general, when you're fighting your age category, your weight, your belt experience level, I mean, you can't really get a better mirror for
Yeah, yeah,
yourself,
I agree.
right? And I think that when they're going all in and you're going all in, preparing and just the process of being intentional with, okay, I'm going to eat well, I'm training well, I'm going to have this focus, I have a reason to have a body.
Right, right.
Because so
Yes,
many people today are disassociated to their body. They are on
agree.
their mobile phones and their computers. We have a body, and our body's amazing.
That's
Like
right.
it's a wild animal, and you can relate to it in such a beautiful way through jujitsu or sports.
Hmm.
So I would say that, if you're there to see what you're capable of, and I think it would be sad if you went through your whole life
Hmm.
without experiencing how magnificent your physiology
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
and seeing how far you could push yourself. And even if you're injured, or you're limited in some way, but seeing that your body responds to you, it responds to its
Yes.
environment. You are connected. You're totally connected with your environment and your actions.
Hmm.
Your choices make you. And it's just this beautiful, beautiful way to connect. So I think that in this day and age where we're so comfortable in a way, having something
Yes.
that stresses you and having a reason to wake up, having a reason to be aware is really super helpful. Now, I had a special situation because my master, my beginning teacher, Fievel, he wasn't with me every single day, and he said, "Hey, Poha, are you a competitor or what? And are you just the guy who just wants to play on the mat?" And I said, "Nah, I'm a competitor." And he said, "Okay." And I said, "So what are the criteria for a belt?" And he says, "Win worlds." So I won worlds. That's how I
There we go.
got promoted,
All
man.
right, all right.
There was no question. It's like, bro, I'm a world champion at blue. Okay, bro, I'm a world champion at purple. Okay, bro, I'm a world champion at brown. Like, let's go.
Hmm.
So it's like that's how, in a way, because that was my desire, that was my focus.
Hmm.
And he held me to that, which was also terrifying. I was
Yes.
like,
Oh, no
oh,
doubt.
oh man, these guys look tough. Like, I don't know. I don't know, man. I chose the wrong path. I mean, of course I had those thoughts. You have that internal
Oh
battle,
yeah, heck
right?
yeah.
So, and I don't think it should be like that for everybody. It's a chosen path. He said, okay, this is your path in jujitsu. This is you living jujitsu. So what do you want from your travel? And I thought
Yeah.
that was such a great relationship.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But
So
you
I
probably
think you're saying, like, by extension, if you deprive yourself of the chance to have that experience, you're missing part of it, is kind of what I'm hearing. I don't know if that's fair, but
Yeah, man, you miss a little bit of the upgrade that jujitsu can give you,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's not like it's this hard thing that you have to be a fighter and you have to put yourself in the fight. You have to. No, but you're missing something if you don't try.
yeah,
And I think that no matter what level, if it's a local tournament, if it's a big tournament, whatever it is, that you put yourself there, even if you lose in the first 30 seconds of your first fight,
right.
everybody, when they come back to the gym, feels like they've gotten 4 months worth of free
Yeah,
training because
yeah,
you just become so
yeah,
much better. You
yeah.
notice that, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Things
oh, yeah.
slow
I
down.
haven't had anybody who's tried it come back and say that was a bad idea. Like,
Yeah.
everybody has come back with the notion of, the experience was fun. I mean, I think when you talk about shared trauma, there's a certain camaraderie of, I don't care what you want to say, we're all here a bit nervous. Oh, the fight is the fight, and when you're done, now you have the privilege to say, oh, in the fight this happened or didn't happen, and and then share your thing versus another. And I always enjoyed that part of athletics earlier in my life, to it was the game was it was a big the pregame part was part of the real pleasure, the playing was part of the pleasure, and the postgame about, how good you were or weren't in conversation was part of, what I loved about being on a team. And jiu-jitsu, although when you're out there in the match, it's you, I still feel like this is a team sport. You don't learn this in a vacuum, and you need your teammates to prepare. And then even in competition, I feel like it is a team sport of sorts, that requires people to be together in a special way. Well, I'm with you, and it's been my tournaments have been of the local friendly variety, and you would think particularly in the first couple that I was at some televised world champion. If you checked my heart rate and my stress levels, you would have thought this was important, and I'm in some high school gym rolling
Oh
around
yeah.
with some other 50-year-old guy, like nobody is paying a bit of attention besides our coaches. But my internal experience was this was the equivalent of an Olympic, televised event, which I think is a good stress inoculation because yes,
Mm.
there is danger, but it's very controlled danger, I would say, and maybe false danger is too strong a word, but kind of
Mm.
you're not a soldier out on the battlefield. I mean, this is like about as safe as. However, that internal feeling of getting ratcheted up the next day at work when you're in some meeting and it feels like there's a conflict, I feel like you have a better self-regulation because you're like, well, this guy's not going to choke me. Like it's a,
Exactly. Exactly. I use that a lot. I'm like, at least I'm not getting choked.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
wow,
Yeah.
okay, they're
He's not
yelling
going
at me, but I'm like, I'm good.
to, there's no
I'm
arm
good.
bars happening in this meeting about the project. Like
Exactly.
that's one thing that I know is not going to happen. Well, in all of those experiences, if I ask sort of your lizard brain, hey, uh, what's the most memorable role or fight you had? What
Mm.
comes out? I mean, it's impossible not to be curious with all the ones you've had.
Wow. Um, I have like self-defense ideas. I have like where I upgraded my understanding of how how the mind works under stress. I have,
Mm,
watching my athletes. There's so many. At one time, I would say there was a tournament um, in Rome. I always went to the Rome Open
mm,
because I could do the Rome Open and do the no gi Europeans,
okay.
right? And I love no gi because of wrestling. I mean,
Sure, yeah.
that was my
It's
best.
natural,
Like
right?
no gi was easy, always easy for me. So I was like, okay. But my mom had just died of cancer,
Oh, my goodness.
and I had been cutting weight, and I was on weight, and I was really ready to go. But then my mom and dad had been living in Italy, and my dad was coming to watch me perform at the European No-Gi and Rome Open, and I was like, you know what? Because I'm a super heavyweight, right? I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna change my registration to open weight, and I'm gonna eat with my dad.
There you go.
I'm just gonna eat. We're in Italy,
Yeah. Good
I'm
choice.
like,
Good choice. Yeah.
and I broke absolutely every rule.
Right.
Man, I was eating pizza and pasta with him. We were drinking wine and remembering my mom,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I was I think I gained like 15 pounds, man. Like I swear to God, in like 4 days, I gained 15
Yeah.
pounds.
Hmm.
And I walked in there, and the guys that I was traveling with, probably Tarek Hopstock, the Tareko Plata genius, he just won the Nogi Worlds black belt.
Wow.
He was with me, Alexander Rios, Rutger Custers, and Marit Tistadal, one of my other athletes, my black belts were with me. And you know what these guys did? Every single time they were on the podium, they took my mom's picture with them.
Oh my goodness. How special is that? That's a
Yeah, and they basically made the whole thing a tribute.
wow.
And
Wow.
me, it was weird that I was able to convert all of the emotion from my mom. My mom always came and watched me fight when she could. And my friend, I never had a better tournament. I
Yeah.
was launching people. I
Wow.
was submitting people. I was unstoppable.
Wow.
I was completely unstoppable. And that was like, what a perfect sequence of being with my dad, getting support from
Yeah.
the people that, love me and I love, being in the boiler room, with all the other athletes,
Yeah.
everybody going super hard. And also the side effect being very successful there was very nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to be quite honest, that I was just being there and being surrounded by my friends and that good
Yeah.
energy. I knew my mom was with me at that
Yeah.
time, like
Sure.
spiritually.
Sure.
So I would say that probably that was the most intense and most memorable
Yeah.
scene that jujitsu gave me, just because it had everything: community and
Yeah.
masters and champions and fights and all kinds of, eating pasta and drinking wine in Italy. Come on, you know?
Yeah.
And my dad and I, we were laughing and talking, telling old stories. It was just what an experience, you know?
That's so beautiful. I mean, it's what a gift to have what, a period of mourning be sort of, for lack of a better term, maybe this isn't the right term, but almost elevated to a celebration of life that would be hard for you to have done on your own if you had,
Yeah.
if you had gone and said, no, you know what, I need to live with this grief by myself, or I need to, spend the time, versus creating the opportunity for you and your dad to then, take care of each other for the places that were tender, I'm sure, and that were hard for that passing. But then I'm Irish and Italian. I'm from New York. It's weddings and funerals. You don't get to see somebody, and it's sad. But for much of my family, you're drunk that night, and those stories all come out. And frankly, it's a great party too. So
Yeah.
both things can be true at the same time. But then to have all the jujitsu community come and to hold your family up as a, hey, we, our brother here, we honor his loss, and I'm sure they had met her along the way. It sounds like she had
Oh
been,
yeah, many times.
yeah.
She
So
was a
that's
mom for all of them.
that's
Yeah,
so
when she
great.
was going through chemo, they all shaved their heads, It was
Wow.
amazing, man. They're just wonderful people. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I mean, where do you get that,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just amazing.
When you think of, I mean, you've coached a lot, and you've seen, I mean, that's an extraordinary story of the power of jujitsu in your life. Do you have a story of maybe how jujitsu came into somebody else's life in your constellation that you could share that was profound?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the people actually you've been in contact with, which is the CEO of one of my companies,
Hmm.
Marit Gabrielsen. She's amazing, and she's been in the army, and she's an officer, and she also had some PTSD going on coming
Sure.
out of there, because she's um, was pretty active, and through some of the experiences she had to make very hard decisions,
Hmm.
and decisions where there were no good
Yeah.
answers, where people were going to be lost and that kind of thing. So um, she developed a freeze response,
Hmm.
that when stress would rise and then there was no clear channel of action, as long as it was clear, it was easy.
Okay.
But as soon as it became unclear, is it left or right, then the freeze would start to happen.
Okay.
And one of those situations showed up actually when she's fighting. Now, this is a woman who can do 16 pull-ups.
She's strong.
There's not normal. Like, it's
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
over average, right?
Yes. Yes.
And what you'll notice with people who are traumatized is that they have ritualistic avoidance, but they also have an interesting thing. They have an immune response that's not rational around the trauma,
Okay.
to reinforce the trauma, reinforce the behaviors that come from it.
Okay.
So, and I've been allowed to tell this story by her, by the way.
Okay.
So, I'm
Thank you.
not, this is legit and kosher.
Okay. I'm glad to
So
hear that. Okay.
when she would get grabbed, as long as her hands were free and she was doing the grabbing, it was fine. But as a white, blue, and purple belt, when they would control like a 2-on-1, she
Hmm.
would freeze.
Sure.
So she would win many competitions, but all of the competitions that she lost because she was freezing, because she wouldn't break the grip.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember I'm like, okay, when we roll, you break my grips like it's nothing.
Hmm.
It makes no sense. And she's like, nah. And I said, no, let's go roll. So I'm grabbing it. I'm grabbing like, monkey like cuff grips on her sleeves, and she's just smashing my hands away. Collar goes bam,
Right.
it's no problem. And I'm like, you're breaking my grips here. How is it that these girls are holding you? And she's like, you have no idea how strong these 120-pound girls are, Jason. And I'm like,
The super heavyweights.
I'm a 250-pound world champion grabbing you like a monkey, like a gorilla, and you're just snapping my fingers off like it's nothing, like they're like pretzels. How is that? And she was able to kind of see it.
Right.
And once you're able to get that distance and you see the behavior,
Yeah,
because that
that's
was the immune
interesting.
system, right?
Right.
That so she was able to see it. And then we started just continually working her back into the position until she could solve, and
Hmm.
then work her back into
Okay,
the
very
next
good.
position and she would solve.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, bam, she went to the worlds. Now I have to tell this story because it's so amazing. She goes to the worlds as purple belt, and it's in Las Vegas because she's a master competitor. And before we leave, she she has somebody drop on her foot and she sprains her ankle. So
Oh,
she starts with a sprained ankle,
whoa.
but she's not going to stop.
Okay.
Okay. Then somehow she also not enroll with me, but enroll with one of the lighter guys because I was doing a lot of coaching at that time.
Right.
She got hit in the jaw, and that actually broke her jaw. Like it fractured not
Oh
the
my
not the
goodness.
not the ramus here, but the skull part of it, right?
Okay.
So the inside of her ear wasn't that great. And then we went on this helicopter ride. I was like, okay, we're here. We're going to relax. We're going to go on a helicopter ride. And it's hot. Like it's 125 degrees outside, right? So she puts on the sun block because we're from Norway, and it's we do not get
You don't
sun
do
here,
desert
right?
sun. Yeah.
And she's white, like she's Scandinavian white.
Right.
And she starts to sweat and it rolls into her eyes and her eyes swell shut.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. So here she is. Her
Sprained
eyes
ankle,
swell
broken
shut.
jaw, blind.
She looks like, yeah, she looks like Kermit the Frog, right?
Oh my gosh.
And her eardrum reacts and she breaks, the eardrum
Oh,
actually breaks. We get her a check by a medical doctor. And she's like, Jason, I'm not sure this is gonna go that well. And I said, you know what? You're gonna show up on the mat.
right.
I don't care. You can tap out, but we're gonna show up on the mat.
Hmm.
And she had some absolutely amazing fights. She
Oh my gosh.
put down, I she ended up winning bronze,
Oh
okay? And it was a
my
pretty big
God.
category.
Oh, I'm sure.
And the loss that she had, it was one of the best fights she's ever had, and she never froze.
Wow. Okay.
And she walked off the mat and she said, Jason, I lost because I went left and not right. I lost because I went left and not right, and I didn't freeze. She said, I've now gotten everything that I could ever want out of competition, and
Right.
I'm finished.
Okay.
She
What
said,
what a story. My
now I've
goodness.
gotten, she was able to kind of go through the whole revolution of decoupling this traumatic freeze, and she doesn't freeze anymore. She doesn't freeze on the mat. She doesn't freeze in board meetings. She doesn't freeze in her everyday life.
Yeah.
That reaction pattern is gone. She claimed it, she integrated it, and she's grown from it.
That's
And
extraordinary. And how much
it's
more
amazing.
powerful of a human being she is for having
Oh,
come through that, I mean, as opposed to accepting like, well, hey, there's only so much I can do as a person. I just need to accept that, as opposed to like, oh, it's possible. This is not a immutable fact of my life. It's something that can happen. So her faith,
exactly.
in trusting your process and trusting the things that, I mean, that's a beautiful story. Um, you have a ton of superpowers, it seems like, and sometimes people will
Uh,
pick a superhero name for me for their jujitsu persona. Any chance you got one
well,
of those along
well,
the way?
if you think about like superheroes, like you have like a Superman, and you have like Spider-Man, you have
Right.
Iron Man. I think because I've gotten so much love from jujitsu, if I was going to be a superhero, I think my name would have to be Love You Man.
Oh, here we go. I like it.
Yeah, so they're
That's
like,
it.
"Hey,
Yeah.
love you, man."
Love
I'm
you,
like, "I
man.
love you
Look who,
too."
yeah, look who's back. It's the love you,
Yeah,
man.
it's love you, man. Yeah, I love you too. You know, so I think that that's probably the only place I could go with that.
I love that. It's the most powerful one of them all. Um, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to want to like learn more about you, find you. To tell where should they go? What's the right spots to go check you
Well,
out?
the right now I'm writing a book, so I'm off of Instagram and I'm off of Facebook. But if they would like to connect or come to some of the seminars we have,
Hmm.
you know, and learn meditation techniques and all that, they can go to integrated-human.com.
Okay.
So that's probably,
Integrated-human.com. Okay, very good.
yeah, because that's the website, and then just send us an email and I'll answer whatever comes in. You know,
That's
and Marit, the superhero Marit, she's going to be also seeing the emails. So,
okay.
you know, she's been empowering a lot of ladies afterwards. You know, they just love to hear her story and how she
Yeah.
came
Oh my
out
God, what a
and
story.
kicked ass. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a beautiful life we're living here. You know, Pete. I just I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's that is the right disposition no matter what's going on, in my opinion. You know, I mean, how to stay in a position of gratefulness regardless of the circumstance to me is like if as much as we can do that, I think our chance for happiness is really present only then, you know, because if you're not grateful for what's going on, then you're in conflict with it, and you know, you're going to get submitted. You
Yeah, that's it.
know, right?
That's it.
That's it. Well, they'll hopefully you'll come back again. I'd love to talk more, and this was amazing. So thank you so
Uh,
very much.
Thank you so much, Peter. And I look forward to next time.
Excellent.